How do you introduce a bloke like John Denver? Well, I'll take a leaf out of his own book, this latest concert program he has. It reads in his own words, I guess it's the way he would like himself introduced. 20 years in hiding, Henry John Dushendorf Jr., growing up in New Mexico, Oklahoma, Japan, Arizona, Alabama and Texas. An Air Force brat coming out on the farm, in the desert and the mountains, on the summer harvest. An aspiring architect breaks through invisible chains with the guitar that was always his best friend. And in 1964, the name John Denver is born in the city of Los Angeles, singing for his supper and for his life and anyone who would listen. Well, in 20 years, millions and millions have listened right around the world. Jeff Harvey and I joined about 7,000 people at John's Melbourne concert last night. It was a wonderful evening. Anyone go to it from here? Yes, indeed. It was great fun, wasn't it? Wonderful. Great fun. Special evening. John's my special co-host today. So settle back as we fly away for the next hour and a half with John Denver. Let's begin the Denver experience, and that's what it is, with John Denver and his band as he sings Back Home Again.
There's a storm across the valley, clouds are rolling in. The afternoon is heavy on your shoulders. There's a truck out on the 4-lane, a mile or more away, and the whining of his wheels just makes it colder. He's an hour away from writing all your prayers up in the sky. 10 days on the road, barely gone. There's a fire softly burning, and supper's on the stove. But it's the light in your eyes that makes him warm. Sing with me, folks. Hey, it's good to be back home again. Sometimes you're so far, feels like a long lost friend. Yes, hey, it's good to be back home again. There's all the news to tell you. Honey, how do you spend your time? Tell me what's the latest thing the neighbors say. And your mother called last Friday, sunshine made her cry, and you felt the baby move just yesterday. Hey, it's good to be back home again. Yes, it is. Sometimes you're so far, feels like a long lost friend. Yes, hey, it's good to be back home again. Oh, the time that I can lay this tired old body down and feel your fingers feather soft upon me. The kisses that I live for, the love that lights my way, the happiness the living with you brings me. It's the sweetest thing I know, just spending time with you. It's the little things that make a house a home, like a fire softly burning and supper on the stove, and the light in your eyes that keeps me warm. You all sing it for me. All right. like a long-lost friend of mine. Hey, it's good to be back home again. I said, hey, it's so good to be back home again.
John Denver. One of the many songs John's written and sung for us. Come on up, John.
Are you ready?
See you. Terrific. Thank you. Back home again. It feels like for us like you've come back home anyway.
Well, it feels like that to me, too. I like Australia a lot. I've been here a lot, and it feels like coming home when I come back here.
This morning when John was just doing a brief rehearsal here, he said, I said, we'll get the audience to sing. And he said, well, no, it's not like the concert last night. It was like the concert last night.
Yeah, I'm impressed. Thank you very much.
At the concert last night as well, I was trying to figure what we'd ask you to sing here. You said just have a go, open slather. And I thought, I'll just see what the audience, the 7,000 people, what they sing.
Uh-huh.
They sang everything.
Everything. Isn't that nice?
Now, for me, I picked that one. For me, I guess everyone's got a favourite John Denver song, but when I'd worked out of New York in my ABC days for about almost 10 years, and my wife and I were leaving to come home, somewhat reluctantly, because we'd loved living there and wandering around the place. And this is honest truth. We hopped on a plane at Kennedy Airport to fly to Los Angeles and then come to Australia, and we put the earphones on, and there was John Denver singing Back Home Again. And which seemed to be especially poignant, but I suppose that's what people must say to you around the world, that, you know, Shanghai Breeze has a special meaning for me, or Annie's song. Or...
Yeah. Annie's song, I think, is the most popular song everywhere in the world, and but everybody has their own favorites. Back Home Again is my son Zach's favorite song, so...
Is it?
I like that, yeah.
All right. Now, and for you, again, I mean, do you find that each time... does it become rote at all that you've sung that song and Annie's song so many hundreds of times that you're just singing, or do you live it every time you sing it?
Well, if I'm able to do what I want to do, then each time is the first time. And you know, part of what you do, I think, as a singer, as a songwriter, is to recreate what that feeling was when you wrote it. And for instance, people are always asking me if I still sing Annie's song, if they haven't heard that, and how I feel about it. And it's still one of my favorite songs. I think it's a wonderful love song, and I only remember the things that I wrote the song about when I sing it.
Yes.
So it's very real for me.
And Shanghai Breezes, again, you told the story at concert about that. I mean, it seems everyone has... You really pour your heart out there in these songs, don't you?
Well, I do, yeah. It's, I guess everyone longs to be able to express themselves in one form or another, and musically, I think I'm better or more comfortable at expressing myself and really laying my soul out there, as you say, when I'm singing for a few thousand people, than sometimes when I'm talking one-on-one. So
yes.
it's something I have to find a balance in, I think.
But quite clearly, if people get, if they love Annie's song as they do, if they get your songs for their weddings and for special 21st and special occasions, people transfer it not just from your Annie, but to their daughter.
Well, and that's what I try to do. I'm not the kind of songwriter who sits down every day and writes a song. They come out of my own experiences, my own observations, my vision sometimes, my own emotions. And then what I try to do is say what's so for me in as universal a way as possible so that people everywhere can relate to the song. And when it works, that's what happens. And you ought to hear people in the Soviet Union sing Annie's song.
Yes.
It's a wonderful thing. And they love ballads. They love those kind of expressions. They love nature and expressions of nature in music. And so a song like that, you know, is truly universal. China, the most popular Western song in China is Country Roads.
Is that right?
Yeah. And I'm going to do a tour in China later on this year.
Country Roads. Could they relate to that?
Well, evidently so. I remember it was about, you know, the terrible thing that happened in Tiananmen Square a few years ago. There was an interview, I think, on TNN. They were talking to one of the student leaders and his mother, and in the background of the whole interview, they were playing my greatest hits album.
Yes.
And there was another scene where they had a bunch of kids in Tiananmen Square and they were singing Country Roads.
I know it's a cliche, John, but I mean, if ever you wanted an example of how music is an international language, that's it, isn't it?
Well, this is it. And I think more and more so. You know, it's gotten to be maybe not as much as films, but certainly one of the greatest expressions for young people and for people all over the world. They're all listening to the same kind of songs. If you have a hit record in Australia, most likely it's going to show up everywhere else in the world. And so it truly has taken on a new importance, perhaps, as a universal language.
All right, we thank you for that. We'll take a break. John's going to stay, thankfully, as our co-host today. We're going to range across the whole sorts of topics that interest him and obviously interest you. We'll take a break.
I've seen it rain and fire in the sky. The shadow from the starlight is softer than a lullaby. Rocky Mountain High.
Now I'm homesick. Oh.
John Denver's just the lovely shots of a Rocky Mountain High country. Now, how often do you get out in that, John?
Not nearly as much as I'd like. I've been on the road. We were all of May in Europe, and then I was down for the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro. I was home for 6 days, taking care of some personal matters, and then we came over here. So I am homesick.
To get into that, let's go back before you got to Aspen then. I mean, the earliest days. I mentioned, in fact, you were an Air Force brat.
Yes.
And so when did the guitar come in? When did you decide you wanted to...
My mother's mother played a guitar. My grandmother, Swope, and she gave me that guitar when I was 12 years old, and I started taking lessons. This was in Tucson, Arizona, and took lessons for about a year, and then we moved to Montgomery, Alabama, Air Force brats traveling all around, and there were several things that happened around that. The guitar itself and the out of doors was always my best friend. I was very shy, and the moving around a lot only exaggerated the difficulty that young people sometimes have in meeting new people and making friends. So my best friends were the guitar and the out of doors. And at the same time, it was the fact that I played a guitar that drew people to me when I went to a new school or like that. I remember starting school in the 9th grade in Montgomery, Alabama, and I didn't know a single person. I started a week after everybody else. And at the end of the week, they asked me, you know, you fill out all of these things, and they said, you're a musician, so bring your guitar to class one day. And I did that and sang a couple of songs that I'd written, and all of a sudden people now were saying hello to me in the hall, so it helped me to make friends. And that's continued all through my life.
Which, again, you've written about,
yes.
My old guitar and so on. There's a source of another song. The Chad Mitchell Trio, again, we had one of the ladies on from the Weavers yesterday, with Pete Seeger and the Weavers
really?
and so on. We had Ronnie Gilbert on.
Really?
And, who sang yesterday. So at that stage, the Chad Mitchell Trio was one of the, along with the Weavers, Peter, Paul and Mary, were the three top folk groups in America?
Well, I think the Weavers were kind of predecessors for what happened in folk music a little later on, which was with Peter, Paul and Mary and the Brothers Four and the Mitchell Trio. Used to be the Chad Mitchell Trio.
Right.
And the New Christian Minstrels and Tom Paxton, Judy Collins, Joan Baez. And the thing that set the Mitchell Trio apart was we did a lot of social and political satire. And when I joined the group, I took Chad Mitchell's place. There were some 300 people auditioned. He was going to move on to Broadway and to other things that he wanted to do. And I went from being just another folk singer on the West Coast to being part of a nationally known group that was making records and doing college concerts all over the country. It was a big step for me. And through the kind of material that they did, I became socially and politically aware.
But how come you wrote Leaving on a Jet Plane and you let Peter, Paul and Mary have it?
Well, one of the first songs that I wrote was a song called For Baby for Bobby, and the trio did that. But they weren't all that enamored with my singing, and what had happened is quite often one of the guys in the trio would show up late, and I'd have to open a show. Or sometimes at a club we'd be working at, I would stay late and do some of the songs that I did on my own that the trio didn't want to do. And one particular Christmas, I made an album as a Christmas present. I made 250 copies and sent it out to all of my friends. And through Milt Oken, who was our producer, he also produced Peter, Paul and Mary and the Brothers Four and some other folks, I'd gotten to know them, and I gave them a copy of this album. And on the album was a song called Old Babe, I Hate to Go, which Milt said, that's a terrible title, Leaving on a Jet Plane ought to be the title. And they recorded the song. It was their only #1 hit record.
Did you expect it was going to be? Did you know when you wrote it, amongst all those songs, that this was the one from your Christmas album? Or was it?
No, it was just, it was only about the 5th song, I think, that I ever wrote. For Baby was 3rd or 4th, and then Leaving on a Jet Plane. And
I suspect, though, that most Australians, even your fans, don't realise that you wrote that. It's just one of those, because you occasionally sing Tom Paxton and other people's songs. But I mean, that is very much yours. Out of the brain up here came that.
The song was written, I was with the Mitchell Trio at the time, and I was living out of a suitcase. I either stayed where we had just finished a performance or went early to the next place. And the song was written as much, in fact, more out of wishing I had someone to sing that to say that to, than anything that was going on in my life at the time. And it was also connected, I think, for a whole lot of people, and where it got to be so popular was all of the young men going off to the war in Vietnam. All of a sudden, that song really was very poignant to them.
Yes.
And interesting thing.
You've got a pilot's license. Can you fly? Are you licensed to fly anything?
I fly everything except a helicopter, and I'm working on that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So how much do you fly now? Do you fly yourself?
Oh, every chance I get. Whenever we're working in the States, I have a Learjet. And I fly that. It requires 2 pilots, and sometimes we're moving after a concert, and I like to have a beer after a concert, so I can't fly at night. And I carry both pilots, or if I'm doing a weekend of work or something like that, where I have to fly out to L.A., then just one of the other pilots and I will fly. And I got to fly. We left home on. What day is it?
Wednesday now in Melbourne.
Anyway, we flew from Aspen to L.A., and I got to fly that leg before boarding the plane to come here.
Have you flown a 747?
I haven't yet. I'd like to. Or fly the simulator, that'd be great.
If anyone in Qantas is watching, if you're going home Qantas, you'll probably find yourself up the front flying.
They have allowed me to sit up front a couple times and watch a landing on Qantas, which they don't on the U.S. airlines, and that's a real special treat.
What about the idea that you've said to us and for some years that you still like to be the first minstrel in space? Do you still have that hanker for that?
Oh, I'd like to. I think I'm getting a little old and tired to hold that as a realistic dream, but I had a very strong wish about going in space, a very real reason why I wanted to do it. I was the catalyst for the whole citizen space program getting started in the United States. I had an invitation to fly with the Soviets at one time, in fact had a flight scheduled with them to go to their Mir space station, and there was all kinds of things. I think that the space effort is one of the best things going on in the world, and I think that part of what it offers is an adventure and a frontier for young people. I think quite honestly, that the biggest problem we face in the world today is that there is at least one generation, and maybe 2, of young people who don't think it can get any better. And we have to do something to give them a vision, to give them a sense that the world they dream of and that we've dreamed of is still possible, and that we have to take responsibility for it and make it happen. And I think someone like me, who can communicate what space is all about and how it affects our lives, flying in space would be a good shot at doing that, at creating that sense of vision in young people. I think it's very important. Anyway, that's why I wanted to fly.
Well, would you agree? The audience agree in terms of that? Because I know in a sense you talk about the disenchantment of American youth, but the disenchantment of Australian youth with, in this state, for example, as many as 46% of young people are unemployed in this state.
And it's true all over the world. And, I think anywhere you look, economically and education, we're on a downhill slide right now. And things don't look like they can get any better. And I think we have a real challenge for ourselves in our lives to find the ways to turn that around. And in the process, we have to do it in a way that captures the imagination and the interest and the commitment of young people. I think it's critically important.
All right, we'll talk about commitment on the environmental front with John and some good friends of ours in just a moment.
Like a storm in the desert, like a sleepy blue ocean, you fill up my senses, come fill me again.
Changes have taken place. Now, is that always progress? Is the fact that the water has changed, the air has changed, that the animals and the birds aren't there the way we knew when we were younger, is that life getting better? What are we leaving for our children?
David Suzuki, wise words from one of the wisest of the communicators. The other day, a couple of weeks back, governments from around the world, delegates and concerned people, got together in Rio, in Brazil, to sort out our global mess. Among them, John Denver and Australia's youngest representative, May Eshraghi. Another bloke, single-handed, he started a campaign to clean up the Sydney Harbour, and now he wants to clean up the world. Ian Kiernan, would you please welcome our guests? John, you were at that conference, I said in Rio. We had some film of you at that conference. Was it a talk fest? Was it a flop? Did it achieve anything?
Well, I think a great deal was achieved just out of the fact of it having happened. You know, the world and people around the world need to take notice that this is the first time in history that world leaders, the number of world leaders that were there, have come together to address a single issue. People have to recognize that there was more press at this event by double than any other single event in history. This is of critical importance. It has to do with our lives, our standard of living, the quality of life on this planet, and our future. And we need to start taking seriously what's going on with the environment. And unfortunately, the other side of the story is we can't wait for the government leaders to show us the way. They, at best, are good followers. When they know what the people want, they'll get the job done. But now the responsibility lies with us, in my opinion.
All right, with us and obviously with our children and changing attitudes. Now, May, you weren't happy about the response from the Australian Children's Summit.
No, I wasn't extremely overjoyed with what we got out of it, because we had children talking to the politicians, addressing them, and then the next moment they were standing up and going outside into the main conference room, and I was extremely disappointing with that, because they said, okay, we're going to sit down, we're going to listen.
I'm sorry, you mean the politicians got up and left?
Yes.
Okay.
And they said we're going to do some compromising and things like that, and they just get up and leave. But some people like Senator John Coulter stayed till the end and gave their comments. Ros Kelly was extremely informative. She answered loads of questions truthfully.
Right.
For example, if she didn't know
She's the Minister
something...
for the Environment, John.
Yes,
Okay.
Sorry about that. If she didn't know something, she'd say so.
Okay. But you understand, I guess, even for someone like Ros Kelly, whose portfolio it is, that it's not easy. The answers aren't easy. Neither John nor Ian would suggest they're easy. They're simple answers, are there?
They could be simplified. If people really wanted to do it, they would. Except sometimes their attitude towards things isn't as hopeful as the people would expect.
Well, and one of the things, May, is that so often now with watching television stuff, especially young people, I notice you expect things to happen right now. You know, when you see the movies, you see world calamities are solved in a couple of hours. And that's not the way it works. And the thing that you must remember and to share with your friends is that, what is it the old Chinese saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. We've taken the first step. Let's not falter. Let's keep with this. Stay with it. Let your voice be heard. Gather your friends together, and together we'll make this happen.
Well, the second step, perhaps, John's been taken by what Ian has done. Tell us again, for those who don't know, this remarkable campaign that really started with you in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, wasn't it?
Exactly, Ray. Yes, it gave me an opportunity during the BOC single-handed around the world race to see the state of the world's oceans, and I was so disgusted and so concerned that I elected to do something about my own backyard.
What did you see, Ian?
I saw incredible tide streams of plastic rubbish, brilliantly manufactured, durable goods, manufactured by the brilliance of man, just carelessly discarded there and busily poisoning the environment. And the ocean environment is terribly important to us. And so I said, okay, I want to do something about my own backyard. But now what has happened, and I know that John's familiar with what has happened here in Australia with Clean Up Australia. Clean Up Australia program is now clearly owned by the people of Australia.
How many people last time?
400,000 people turned out this year to be involved in Clean Up Australia activities on the first Sunday in March. We have 509 cities and towns have registered committees. So what we have now is right across Australia a program of concerned citizens taking real action. And I truly agree with what John said earlier about the Rio conference. If we think that government is going to fix these problems for us, we are 100% wrong. It is simply the actions of individuals like all of us attending and being aware of the problems there and acting in a responsible way. That is what is going to turn the problems around.
David Suzuki made a comment in that clip there about how our elders, and I think he probably meant no one older than us perhaps, but you know, having sailed in Sydney Harbour, tell us what's changed in that. I mean, was there a day you can remember when you could get oysters off the rocks in Sydney Harbour and there were lots of fish?
Oh, most decidedly. When I was a kid, I learnt to sail in Sydney Harbour and to swim and all of those things. And we always had oyster shell cuts in our feet. And we used to eat the oysters off the rocks. And the dolphin used to jump, and there were kingfish in my own bay where I lived. And that has gone. But what we're about is seeing if that can return again. And we believe that if there is sufficient groundswell from the general public, and it certainly seems to be here in Australia, that will happen. Now, being the ambitious people that we are, we have said it has worked so well here in Australia. Australians have adopted it and made it the success it is. Let's see if we can export this very simple initiative to the rest of the world. And on that note, I was going to ask John if he might consider, he doesn't have to answer now, if he might consider being one of the patrons of Clean Up the World Day, which is 1993.
It would be my honor and privilege. I'd be happy to do that.
That's wonderful, John. Fantastic.
John, David Suzuki said to us, one of those comments he made, like you, David Suzuki has children that he cares about the next generation, that May's referred to, but David said that he is very pessimistic about progress, terribly pessimistic, but he must go forward because he's got children to look after. Are you pessimistic?
I've always been an optimist, and at the same time there are things that I've perhaps gotten to be a bit cynical, which I'm ashamed of. I'm sorry that I feel that way, but I'm still not a pessimist. I have great faith in ourselves. I have great faith in young people like May, and I see out there pockets of real interest and real commitment. And still, as I said earlier, I think the major thing that we have to do with people like May as an example is put out for young people all over the world that what we dream is still possible, that what we would like to achieve, we can still take responsibility for and make happen. It's not too late, and but time is getting short.
For May, what would you like to see happen? What?
I'd like there to be a stop to the cutting of rainforests and the use of CFCs in aerosol cans and things like that. And also, it would be extremely nice if we could get some cars that didn't use natural gases and things like that and destroy our environment.
All right. Are you pessimistic? Do you think that there's no future?
No, I'm an optimist. I really believe that we can make it work all together. We have to get together in unity as one single person, for example, and clean up our act.
Great.
Clean up our act. We have to start thinking and acting like a global community. Mm-hmm. You know, I believe that there's a purpose in everything. And the purpose of the mess that we've gotten ourselves into has to do with, like, what does it take to learn? And then once we do learn, what does it take for us to act on what we now know? It's still possible to create the world that we dream of. And working together here in Australia, hands around the world, we can make this the place, the peace on earth, a healthy environment, a sustainable future. And this is our challenge, our generation and yours. This is the most important thing that has ever happened on the planet and in human civilization. And it's up to us to make it work.
And I guess what Ian's doing, in fact, what he started, sparked off this bushfire that he started across Australia, is in fact changing attitudes so that people, when they're out there on that Sunday picking up the rubbish, impressed in the brain is seeing someone drop rubbish elsewhere or seeing someone spew rubbish into the rivers and so on that attempt to try and stop it.
And it's a great experience to be part of something that's so positive and to see the results of your work. Right. And then if we can extend that to not just having a cleanup day, but if people around Australia and around the world every day look for something that you can pick up. It's not hard to find, it's everywhere. Pick up a piece of trash, put it in a container where it belongs, and you'd be surprised the other people who will notice you doing that and start to do the same thing. And then when we create a clean environment to live in, then I think that's going to affect our attitude and our thinking and give us a much greater appreciation for what we've got and what we're capable of.
We'll come back with a song from John, which I guess Potter's Wheel is sort of about what we're talking about in terms of attitudes in the next generation, isn't it? A song that John wrote. Ian, we thank you very much indeed, and May we thank you. We'll take a break.
Bill Danoff. Bill was one of the co-writers on Take Me Home Country Roads and wrote a few other things that I've done over the years, and he sent this song to me a while back, and I just could not get it out of my mind. It's a very moving song to me about children, about values, about the future that we would like to create, and perhaps to a degree what we're more likely to create. Anyway, this is called Potter's Wheel. 3, 4.
The world is fast becoming younger and uses all they've ever known. They've seen the wars, the hurt, the hunger. How will they choose when they are grown? What do you tell forever's children when it's their turn to hurt and heal. Whatever spins a grand tornado can also turn the potter's wheel. Take a little clay, put it on a wheel, get a little hint how God must feel. Give a little turn, listen to it spin, make it in the shape you want it in. Tell with your life the bloody story, teach to their dreams like burning steel. It's not in bombs where lies the glory, but in what's shattered on the field. The potter's wheel takes love and caring, skill and patience, fast and slow. The works it makes are easily broken once they survive the potter's throw. Take a little clay, put it on a wheel, get a little hint how God must feel. Give a little turn, listen to it spin, make it in the shape you want it in. Someday some children will be digging in some long forgotten ground, and they'll find our civilization, or what's left of it to be found. They'll find the weapons of destruction buried deeper in the hole. They'll find a message and a promise in the sand, the potter's bowl. Take a little clay, put it on a wheel, get a little hint how God must feel. Give a little turn, listen to it spin, make it in the shape you want it in. Take a little clay, put it on a wheel, get a little hint how God must feel. Give a little turn, listen to it spin, make it in the shape you want it in. Earth and water and wind conspire when human hands have love and fire. Take a little clay, put it on a wheel, get a little hint how God must feel. Give a little turn, listen to it spin, make it in the shape you want.
Who has concerts in Sydney and Brisbane coming up as well too,
Yes,
don't you? Sydney this weekend that I'll be going to again. We'll give you some dates on those. We mentioned, and the band is all Australian. We should say that. Some of them play it out there.
Yes, thank you.
All Australian. We're very proud of them. Sunil on percussion plays in our band all the time. And they're good people, very good ladies and gentlemen. Now, we mentioned early on that about Qantas and the 747. I asked John if he'd flown one, and he said he'd love to fly one or even fly the simulator. Well, like that, John, we got a call from Qantas.
Yeah, I'm knocked out.
And Qantas say that you can fly their simulator any time you would like.
I will. I'll take him up on that.
You've got to take them up on that. Thank you, Qantas.
Yes.
It's a great idea. All right, with talking about marriage with for richer also comes for poorer. But when you marry a farmer, Christina Hindhaugh says that it's only for poorer. And then there's for drought, for bushfires, for floods, for loneliness, and for all the rest of the fun on the land, as they say. Through the shearing and through the harvest, she's been out there in far western Victoria, out near Bordertown almost. Would you please welcome the woman she calls herself, I guess, the good farmer's wife, Christina Hindhaugh. Thank you, Christina. So we got some people who came even further than you today. They've
Terrific.
to come here. Now, your brother-in-law, Malcolm Fraser, he used to say that life wasn't meant to be easy. Was he talking about living on a farm?
Well, he also, the end of that quote, which no one ever uses, of course, is life wasn't meant to be easy, but it can be delightful, my friend. And I think both comments apply to life on the land.
Are you a bush girl? Were you born and bred in the bush?
Yes, generations of bush girl. They don't come home more hayseed than we.
Now, I guess the books that you've written and the stuff that you've done in columns and so on have made you very much a role model for Australian women. Do you like that? Do you like to be a promoter of the bush?
Well, no, but I believe very strongly that there's not a lot of knowledge in the cities about what goes on in the country, what country life is like. But people are interested, but they don't really know. And so I've been trying to enunciate what it's like to be living in the bush.
When you talk, John, about being a country boy and so on, I mean, do you relate yourself, even though you love the environment and so on, do you see yourself as a country kid?
Absolutely. My father was raised on a small family farm in Oklahoma, and my fondest memories from childhood were the times that I spent on the farm, and I learned how to plow, drive a tractor, and to chop cotton, pick cotton in my youth, pitching bales of hay and things like that. And I think that although it's very, very hard work, there is a great deal of value in the simplicity of that life, and I yearn to live like that again.
Do you live like that, Christina? I mean, do you throw bales of hay, bales of hay?
No, not nowadays, because that's all mechanical.
Have you done shearing?
I would never shear, no. I work in the wool shed, help in the wool shed.
Can you milk a
Things
cow?
like that. No, my father told me never to learn to milk a cow.
Is that right?
I actually did milk it on several occasions, but I kept it a secret.
Yes?
There are certain... but most other jobs on the farm, I think women have learned to do. They're expected to do it, especially in these times. There isn't as much help available. We're going through a crisis in the rural industries. And so everyone in the family's expected to help. And we've all done things we haven't done before and enjoyed them enormously.
But cockies in Australia and farmers and graziers have always whinged. What's different now? What's different today? Ooh. Well, they have, haven't they? Always whinge, but what's different now? This is a genuine whinge.
Well, this is a genuine whinge in that our terms of trade are worse than they've ever been since 1890. But there's some exciting and good things happening on the land now. I think in 2 or 3 years we can see the future looking much brighter. And one of the things that John might be interested in is you're talking about the environment and the hopeful things there are. There's amazing movement in our area planting trees. Mm-hmm. For instance, I was talking to a farmer's wife last night who are on 1,000 acres, which is sort of average property. Mm-hmm. And in 1984 they looked around their property and they had 40 trees left on it. These giant red gums we have, they're wonderful trees. They live for 800 years, 40 left. Mm-hmm. And since then, they've planted 40,000.
Oh, that's fantastic.
On their 1,000 acres, which is not a very big property. Uh-huh. And their aim is to put up to 15% of their land into trees, which means they're eliminating it from grazing ground. But they say they're not losing any productivity because they've improved the pastures grow better, the animals do better, and so they haven't lost any productivity while putting that much into trees.
That's great. There's a program going on now, starting here in Australia by the Australian Conservation Trust to plant 1 billion trees before the turn of the century, and they've asked me to be a spokesperson for that. And we're at our concerts, we're selling a little package. It's $1, and it's seeds to plant a tree in your own yard, and the entire dollar goes to this conservation trust. So that's good. There's the same kind of thing going on in the United States.
And of course it gathers momentum too, because once you get a few leading farmers planting lots of trees, the neighbours come into it. Then these land care groups have sprung up, where you get groups of farmers to help each other plant trees, and the whole district is now being greened again.
So that's great, and we need all
hopeful.
It is hopeful, and we need all the trees we can get, but we also need to understand that a tree farm is not a rainforest, and the old-growth forest must be protected. It's a shameful thing, you know. In Brazil, people hoping to be able to make a living on the land go and cut down trees unknowingly, and in the process, the topsoil is washed away. They're not able to grow food. They're not able to graze their cattle. It doesn't work that way.
This is what your ancestors would have done.
Yes, the red gums were milled through our area.
Well, it happened all over the United States.
But in their defence, they were advised that was a good thing to do.
Yes.
They thought the red gums, that the grass didn't grow beneath them, and that the sheep were getting liver fluke. And so they went round. You can still see the ring barks. There's a family near us that know it was their grandparents that did all the ring barking because they were very tall men, and the line is higher than all the other trees. They feel terrible about it. But it's no use blaming them because they thought they were doing the right thing.
Well, in all of this,
the tide has turned. That's the exciting thing.
It is, and it's really, you know, it's not to blame anyone. It's
to look ahead.
As I was saying earlier, you know, what does it take to learn? And we're learning how we have been the source of a lot of the problems that we're confronting right now, and we can also be the solution.
Yes, you have to be an optimist, I think, in the country today. You say we're whingers, but I think you have to be an optimist to survive. And I heard a lovely definition of an optimist the other day. Would you like to hear it? It was about 2 little boys who put in 2 different rooms on Christmas morning. And one of them was put in a room full of gorgeous toys all wrapped up in bright paper. And the other one was put in a room which just had a big pile of horse manure and a shovel. And 2 hours later, the psychologists came back to see the reaction of these little boys. And the first little boy had ripped all the paper off his parcels, and he smashed half the toys, and he was sitting in the corner crying. And the other little boy had the shovel, and he was almost dug his way down to the bottom of the horse manure, and he's pouring with sweat and red in the face. And they said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I figured there's got to be a pony in here somewhere."
I can't let you go. I've got to mention your book, but someone said I had to ask you how many dogs you've got out there.
Oh, we've got 3 sheepdogs, yes. We love our dogs. They're a great part of farming life. The names people have for dogs are always very interesting.
What do you call them?
Well, our dogs are called Brownie and Flash, which aren't very flash names, I'll admit, but a neighbour ours up the road calls his sheepdog Bra, because it rounds them up and points them in the right direction.
Bra.
But we had some friends of ours had 2
I'm going to remember that.
French jackaroos, 2 boys, a couple of years ago, and they were a great success, and we loved having them on our properties and showing them how we farmed in Australia. And they went home again, and we all had a letter from them at Christmas. And these friends had a letter saying, please send my love to all the people around the district. And then this name, very clearly written, IDJESSE. And my friends Jenny and Tony couldn't understand who this person was or what it was. Particularly, the boys wanted to send their love to Idris. What was Idris? And later on, much later on, they worked it out that this was the name of the sheepdog. The sheepdog's name was Jess, but all they'd ever heard was called Idris. 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 And later on, Jenny and Tony went to France the next year to visit these boys on their Charolais property, and the French equivalent of a sheepdog, or cattle dog rather, came out, and these boys said, "Oh, we call our dog Idris too." People over here say, "What a funny name." We say, "A lot of people in Australia got a dog called Idris."
Idris. We thank you for that. Christina's new book is called For Better, For Worse and For Lunch. It's about a city girl who actually goes to live in the country.
Yes, she doesn't know what's going to hit her, but that's her first year, and she has a lot to learn.
But stories like Idris are in I Love a Sunburnt Torso, which is a collection of articles that Christina's written. Idris would be suitable for your daughter. Idris.
Yeah, Jessie.
Jessie.
Yeah.
We thank you, Christina. Would you please thank Christina for us? He is old, and he has picked up his first harmonica. He played it and quite liked the sound it made, so he's been playing it ever since. Today you could call Kenny Sutherland a veteran of the blues harp. He writes his own songs. Several of them have been recorded and he performs at festivals and jazz clubs, and he's just 13 years of age. Sings the blues. Here's a sample of this talented young performer. Good stuff. Welcome. Thank you. Can you remember when you first started playing?
Well, I was about 3 years old when I started playing.
You can remember that, though, can you?
Not really. It was pretty young, 3 years old.
Did you play the piano or anything else?
Oh, no, I've started playing piano lately. Like, for about 3 years I've been playing piano.
All right. Now, why this? I mean, John, at 13, how does he sing the blues at 13? The blues, you're supposed to be in love and out of love and in love and broke and 13.
Broken-hearted? Have you had your heart broken yet? I hope it never happens.
So where do the blues come for you?
Well, my dad always used to play the harmonica.
Right.
He used to leave him lying around the house. And I just used to pick him up and blow on them like this. And over the years I've developed it. And
you have indeed.
started.
So who are your musical idols, Kenny?
In Australia, it'd have to be Jim Conway, Anthony Harkins, and Peter Madcat, Charlie Musselwhite,
So these are all harp players?
harp players here.
All right. And for you, John, who were your idols? Who were your musical idols when you were 12-year-old playing that guitar?
Well, so he's got a big head start on me. I didn't start playing until I was 12. This guy's 13. My first hero, I guess, was Elvis Presley.
Uh-huh.
And then all of the other people came out of that, and especially the young ones. You know, Paul Anka was a songwriter. I think he was 15 when he had the hit Diana, whatever. So people like that.
Now, last night I noticed at the concert you played the piano. I've not seen you play that before. Is that a recent innovation for you?
Well, I play as if it were, and I'm not a very good piano player at all. It's just, you know, I've used it to write songs, and so I can kind of pick out, but I don't consider myself a piano player anywhere near the way I'm sure he is.
Now, Seasons of the Heart you always do at the piano?
Yes?
Yes, okay, well, it's one of those. Can you play this at school? Do you do music at school?
Yeah, well, at lunchtimes and stuff,
At lunchtimes?
we book the music room.
Yes.
We go upstairs and play, some of me and my friends.
Who is we?
Anthony McClumfer.
Yeah.
He's around my age. He's in year 8, and
What does he play?
he plays guitar,
Okay.
and we're kind of a duo.
Ah.
So what about girlfriends?
At the moment, I don't have a girlfriend.
You're
at the moment.
unattached at the moment? Listen,
Can you relate to that?
I can relate to that, yeah.
We recently broke up.
You recently broke up.
Oh.
So who did you break up from? What was her first name? Don't tell us the other name.
Kate.
Kate.
You and I can go hang out together here, pal. I'll teach you the blues. Oh, God.
So do you want to do, I mean, at one stage John was going to be an architect. Do you want to do something else, or do you want to be a musician?
Actually, I was seriously thinking of being an architect.
Seriously?
Really?
Seriously.
And now?
Now, I found out it involved a hell of a lot of maths, and, and so, well, I think I'm going to be a musician when I grow up.
Be a musician when you grow up. You got to talk him out of it, John?
It's nice to have something to fall back on, but go for it.
Go for it. How can you say go for it when you look at Jeff Harvey and those musos over there? How can you possibly say go for it? Look at that. Jeff, will you talk him out of it?
No, I think it's a very satisfying thing. You get to meet some lovely people. What am I talking about?
Kenny, we wish you well. I guess we got you out of school today.
Oh, well, no, actually. Just about every kid in Princess Hill's probably watching this show right now because we've got a curriculum day today.
You've got okay. And your teacher, do you want to actually apologise and say good things to your teacher on national television?
No, I won't, actually.
Kenny, we thank you. Would you please thank Kenny? We'll come back with John and
Relationships. This is the most recent song, the title song of my 30th album, I believe. It's called Different Directions. 3, 4.
They say they love each other, I've no doubt they do. They say they'll always be together, that may not be true. They come from different places, different points of view. They find themselves in different spaces, everything is all brand new. Two different directions, too many different ways. One always on the road somewhere, the other one always stays. Too often unhappy, too often all alone. When you are moving in different directions, true love is on your own. Old stories start to surface, patterns from long ago, and loving quickly turns to anger for reasons they don't even know. The strongest heart can be broken with one insensitive word. The deepest feelings remain unspoken, no one is seen and nothing heard. Two different directions, too many different ways. One always wants to work things shout, the other one wants to play. Too ready for changes, and too much that just can't wait. When you are moving in different directions, true love can turn to hate. If opposites attract each other, what's the reason for one being like an open window, one just like a closing door? Two different directions, too many different ways. One likes to see the morning sunrise, the other one sleeps in bed. Too many tomorrows, and too many times too late. When you are moving in different directions, true love may have to wait. If you are committed to different directions, true love will have to wait.
Has been John Denver. John, this is a delight. We thank you for doing this for us. You mentioned 30 albums, the new one, which is called Different Directions. Do you wince when you think, my goodness, 30 albums?
Not so much that, but when I hear a little kid 12 years old play like that, I start feeling pretty old and tired.
There was a review in this morning's paper here in Melbourne, which was a very flattering review, as it should have been, about your concert last night. And if you get a chance in Sydney or Melbourne to go, then you must go. But they referred to a poignant section. The review said it was poignant. There's a section you bring in those Australian strings, and you say, I'm going to sing some love songs.
Well, I do a whole lot of love songs, and all of them have come out of my own relationships and my experiences, and some of them are, I suppose at this time, more poignant than others.
I said a moment ago to you, that song you just sang in there is in our house with my 7.5-year-old daughter. The 2-year-old boy doesn't talk at this stage. He just says, But with my daughter, there's a word we insist can't be used. It's called hate. We say, no, you can't hate anything. You have a line in there for one of the, I think, the best love songwriter in the world, you are. And you've got a line in there, when true love turns to hate.
So how can that possibly happen? You know, how can you even think of feeling that way? And yet it does feel like that.
Yeah. Did you hesitate about using that word in the song?
I did. It was a real interesting thing for me, and you know, a song has its own rights, yeah. And you have to be true to the song. And when it came out that way, it was a little surprising to me. And there's a thing that we did in the recording where there's parts where I'm singing harmonies and like that with myself, and then that word is all the voices are right there in unison, and it points it out. And it's interesting how you can use the music to underline certain things. And it's a shame that it feels that way. You've got some of the songs here too are Australian songs. Yes. A group called the Black Sorrows, I heard quite some time ago. They had a song called The Chosen Ones, I guess, on the radio. And I was just knocked out. And some of the most musical rock and roll that I've ever heard, and very, very pointed lyrics that were very meaningful to me. Joe Camilleri, is it? Joe Camilleri, yeah. Camilleri, yeah, and Black Sorrows. So Chained to the Wheel, The Chosen Ones. Hold On to Me and The Chosen Ones. It's about as hard-edged as I ever get, but I sure enjoy doing those songs. Did you feel locked into Rocky Mountain High there? I remember a concert that I went to of yours, and you said, well, I don't want you all to come and live in Colorado. I want you to live in the deserts and the rainforests and all other places you want to live. But when I sing about the Rocky Mountains, I'm singing about the world. Well, yeah, that's the way I feel. It happens to be the place, you know, that's the most meaningful to me and evoked that kind of feeling for me, which the ocean actually does to the same degree, and many places here in Australia. And I think everybody has that kind of feeling about their home. The song Back Home Again, everybody feels that way. You fill up my senses. Everybody feels that way when they're in love. And Rocky Mountain High, boy, it's pretty hard to beat. And You Made Me Homesick. I can't wait to get. It's the most beautiful time of the year now in Colorado. The sky is, when you have a blue out and thunderstorms come up every afternoon, you get to go out hiking. It was on a hiking trip that I started writing that song. Yes. So I look forward to some time off back home. You mentioned last night with one of the songs as well, I didn't realize that, in fact, when you write songs, such as Rocky Mountain High, I suspect, and Shanghai Breeze, as you said last night, it's got to come out. Mm-hmm. It's simply up there no matter what you're doing.
it simply takes control of your brain. You've got to write it.
Shanghai Breezes happened after a phone conversation with Annie. I was in Shanghai, she was back in Colorado, and I had this very, very busy day with the people that I was visiting there, but I have no idea at all what I did that day because the song took over my life. And sometimes, you know, it's a struggle to write a song, and sometimes it just can't come quickly enough, and sometimes it will not let you do anything else. The song takes over.
We've got to take a break, but I just have to, in passing, make mention as well. I've seen you several times now on our show with children. Now, you can't fake that. You obviously have a great love of and reverence for them.
I love children. I love my children. My little baby girl, Jessie, is just the sweetest thing in the world. And children are the very best of ourselves and need to be loved, honored, and respected. And it's a part of who I am, I guess, and it's impossible not to show that.
Yeah.
There's little Jessie.
Now, how old is she now?
She's 3.
She's 3.
3 in a month.
And has Dad right round a little finger? Completely wrapped around and
You better
control?
believe it. There's another thing. My life is not my own anymore.
Ain't that the truth? Let's take a break. We'll come back and say goodbye to John.
Hi, Jessie.
We're out of time. We're out of time. That's the bad news. The good news is that if you, well, I mean, if you come from Bordertown and other places around there, you could easily go to Sydney. But John's only got 3 concerts left. He's got to go back to the States and back to the Rocky Mountains. On Friday, this coming Friday, the 26th of June, and Saturday night, he's going to be at the Sydney Entertainment Centre. There are still some seats available. There shouldn't be, but there are 1 or 2 available. Jeffrey, do you want to endorse that concert we saw last night?
It was fantastic. I had a lovely time, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I lasted right the way through without even nodding off for a second.
No, you don't know what a feat that is. I mean, there could not be a greater endorsement of your concert last night. The fact that he didn't nod off. So there you go.
Thanks, Jeff.
And he sang along as well. So that's Sydney on Friday and Saturday night, Brisbane on Tuesday night, just for one night, John.
Just one night.
And then it's back home to the Rocky Mountains. We mentioned John's 30th album, Different Directions, which is now available in Australia. People have brought their own albums, holding their own albums, going back to you. That's when you were about 16, John.
Yes, I think so.
Would you like to say anything? Because there are about 1 million Australians watching.
Well, just how happy I've been to be in Australia again. I'm enjoying singing for you, and I look forward to returning soon.
Would you please thank Mr. John Day?
Thank you.
Thank you, John.